Penguin Random House Audio presents Righting Wrongs, 3 decades on the front lines battling abusive governments. This is the author, Kenneth Roth. To Annie. Preface. In countries with the rule of law, most people look to the courts to enforce human rights. But in many countries, judges have been corrupted, compromised, or killed, and are therefore unable to stop the government from violating rights. Human Rights Watch, which I directed for 3 decades, figured out how to deploy the public sense of right and wrong to pressure the political branches of governments to respect rights. The process is not ideal. A strong, independent judiciary is often better, but it can be remarkably effective. This book pulls back the curtain to show the strategies that we used, both what worked and what did not. People, of course, want human rights, at least for themselves, but governments that are intent on retaining power by suppressing political opposition often resist. The result is a struggle, one in which the never-ending duty of the human rights movement, of people who care about rights, is to increase the price of oppression, to shift a government's cost-benefit calculation so that abuse no longer seems as desirable. Much can be done, but the process is rarely linear. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Yet there is no guarantee of respect for rights. Indeed, in a less remembered part of the same speech, Dr. King admitted as much. Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. As I show, it is entirely possible for a relatively small group of people, Human Rights Watch and our allies, to succeed in curbing or mitigating abuse. But even when the pressure falls short, it is still often felt, helping to prevent further deterioration. Almost always, a price can be imposed for misconduct in order to discourage officials from behaving badly, though the route may not at first be obvious. My colleagues and I constantly had to analyze where our points of leverage might be. We found that the combination of creativity and perseverance regularly yielded productive paths to right the wrong. There are plenty of human rights challenges today. The autocratic threat to democracy, pervasive war crimes in many armed conflicts, the rise of some governments that attack human rights fundamentals, as well as climate change, poverty, inequality, and the risks of artificial intelligence. But this is no time for despair. These challenges underscore the urgency of the tasks before us. Tellingly, governments went to great lengths to avoid the pressure we brought to bear, which speaks to its power. I'm writing this book because I found that when people understand the tactics we use to push back against abusive governments, they are encouraged to join the effort. Some people support human rights in the abstract, but doubt that much can be done to guarantee them. They think of human rights activists as well-intentioned but ineffectual. I was determined to build an organization that would not settle for gestures, but sought concrete results. Demystifying that work, illustrating what we did to change government policy, not simply by standing for rights, but by exerting pressure to uphold them, helps people to move from perfunctory support to active engagement. Knowing that real change is possible, that the perennial skeptics are wrong, encourages people to help make that change happen. The strategies I describe are hardly the only ways to defend human rights. As an international human rights organization, Human Rights Watch had options and priorities that might differ from those of a local or national rights group. But these strategies worked for us. The pressure techniques I outline, while used to defend human rights, can be deployed in other fields as well. As I show, the key to changing the conduct of governments is pushing them to live up to widely shared moral standards. That strategy can work wherever the conduct of individuals or institutions falls short of public expectations in academia, healthcare, business, any place where norms of behavior exist or can be promoted. Many progressives develop expertise and propose good ideas, but put too little effort into pushing the target government or institution to make the change they seek. Good ideas alone are rarely enough to overcome the comfort of inertia. Generating pressure on a target is usually needed to tilt the balance in their favor. That requires understanding how to exert pressure and figuring out where it can be applied most effectively. As I describe the many battles that my colleagues and I fought, drawing on my own recollections and notes, as well as those of my colleagues, this book can be seen as a handbook for action. In outlining our experience addressing many of the world's most difficult countries and pressing issues, my point is less to prescribe particular strategies than to stimulate thought and discussion about ones that might be pursued. There are rarely simple answers, and regular reassessment is required. The examples I cite show approaches that can work, but there is ample room for disagreement, as there was within Human Rights Watch. Debate is healthy. It produces a stronger movement. Governments might seem large and immutable, but only a few people are needed to expose their misconduct and to generate pressure for reform. Information, carefully collected and strategically deployed, can be powerful. As Margaret Mead reportedly said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Using the strategies that I detail, Human Rights Watch demonstrated the truth of her observation. I am proud of and eager to share the tools and techniques that we developed to make the world a better place. Chapter 1. Idlib, Syria. I think it's important to start by saying that even in the most dire situations, it is possible to make a difference. And when the stakes are life and death, even a small difference can be tremendously important. One of the biggest challenges we faced during my time at Human Rights Watch was trying to stop the slaughter of civilians in Syria. The enormity of the problem required initiative and persistence to build enough pressure to have an impact. After brutal repression of peaceful anti-government protests in early 2011 yielded an armed conflict, Syria became synonymous with mass atrocities. The carnage was so awful that it was a central focus of Human Rights Watch and a personal preoccupation for me. Despite the magnitude of the challenge, we helped to curtail this unspeakable cruelty. Throughout the fighting, the Syrian government ripped up the rulebook, international humanitarian law, that is designed to spare civilians the hazards of war. Instead, it targeted civilians. It dropped barrel bombs on them, oil drums filled with explosives and shrapnel to maximize damage, deployed chemical weapons against them, starved them, and forcibly disappeared, tortured, and executed them. It was an appalling, deliberate effort to defeat an insurgency by using war crimes and atrocities. To better understand the horrors unfolding, I periodically visited Gaziantep, the Turkish city known as a sister of Syria's Aleppo. During my visits, Gaziantep was the hub for humanitarian operations in rebel-held northwestern Syria. I spoke with refugee families, orphans, humanitarian workers, and especially doctors who were impressively trying to provide health care in very dangerous circumstances. I became deeply concerned about their plight and the fate of the people they were trying to serve. The doctors vividly described the dreadful conditions of life under the Syrian government. One anesthesiologist who had been serving in the military told me of having been forced to sedate 63 people in detention when the United Nations Arab League Special Envoy, Lakhdar Brahimi, visited Idlib in 2012. The purpose was to silence them and make it easier to hide from Brahimi their shackles and wounds.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?